All right, so we are back with another video on what we love to do, calling elk, using a bugle tube, using externals, diaphragms, all that. I'm just going to talk about a little bit of how I call, how I learned to call, and kind of what has transformed over the years for me, just sounds and things that I've learned. So just going to jump right into it. Super basic, starting with a diaphragm call. So when we set out to figure out the perfect diaphragm, we were going to do a signature series with Phelps. We literally couldn't agree on a call. So we ended up with 3. And the cool thing is it kind of all came together with 3 different reeds, all for 3 different styles and tones. So Trent came up with the Committed. It's a thicker latex, low stretch. It's the deepest sounding one for me and how I produce. Tagged Out was what Trevor came up with. It's a tighter stretch, similar in thickness. And last but not least was the reason, the one that I liked the best. Tight stretch with a thicker latex as well, but a super tight stretch, so really high pitch. Just gonna kind of give you a sample of what these sound like, and kind of a little bit like how I learned to use a diaphragm. I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old, I wanted to kill a turkey. I literally, every time I put a diaphragm call in my mouth, I gagged, and like gagged bad. I folded the tape forward, stuck it in my mouth like this. That's how I got a sound out of a diaphragm call. Since then, things have changed quite a bit of how I am able to call. Use the amp frame. It's way more comfortable. I don't put it up against the roof of my mouth flat like this. I run it at an angle, and I run it really forward in my mouth down to the base of my teeth. So when I stick the call in my mouth, it ends up like that. Not necessarily the right way, but it's the way that I'm comfortable with, and I can make some sounds with it. It makes it hard for me to use this call though, the Committed. Like I said, it's super deep. I'll go through with some cow sounds with this. All 3 of these reeds you can cow call and bugle with. Just depends on your style and how you blow the call. So you can kind of see as I'm cow calling, I'm changing where my mouth is and how that is, and it can change the tone of the call. The next up is tagged out sounds. And last but not least, you can kind of stack those up, have multiple sounding elk. I personally have more control with this tighter stretch reed. Cow sounds, you can really screw up a cow call and blow elk up. Honestly, we use cow calls sparingly a lot of times. When I do, the biggest thing is you have one in your mouth. Bull comes in, it's coming across an opening, you cow call to stop it, shoot it. Next, sometimes a bull will just answer to it. Like Trent said in a video before, that you never know what that bull experienced last night. Could have got in a fight, could have got beat up. You bugle at him, he's going to go the other way. But a lot of times locating, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to an area. Like I said, we do the cat road shuffle a lot. We talk about this. It's covering ground. We walk old road beds like this, doing the cat road shuffle. We're moving 100, 200, 300 yards, cow call, bugle, move on. The locator sequence of what we do, just trying to find a bull. 2 cow calls. Stop, listen, nothing. Then I'm going to throw out a bugle. And this is a high-pitched locator bugle. And what that bugle is, it's all about hitting that top note, holding the tone. It's that resonating tone when you hit in your ears. It just, that buzz, that carries the loudest. Short, stop it. So it's a longer note, and then at the end, just stop it, cut it off. Last up, what we're going to do is going to be a locator bugle with a lip ball in it. It's got a little bit more intensity in it, a little bit more emotion. And hopefully one of these 3 is what's going to make that bull bugle. Lip ball at the end. You can also lip ball in the middle or beginning. That's kind of the sequence I go through in a locator scenario. Another one too that we've relied on in the past is like an easy estrus, an open reed call. This one is an acrylic call that the signature series we came up with. It's got a little bit different reed thickness and width, so the sound out of it and the soundboard sound really carries well. We've had bulls crack off locating to this, so a sound of the easy estrus. I personally have always put the reed down and slid that call forward in my mouth, where you can kind of rotate it up. And as that pressure changes from where your lip's at, the length of the reed changes from the soundboard, and the tone goes down in tone. So it's a simple, put your lips together, turn them in. It's kind of the how we use the easy estrus. It's, I would say, easier to learn how to do than what a diaphragm cow call is. And you can get that estrus, you know, a lot of times you'll hear it every once in a while, cow getting that whine estrus call where it goes, yeah, yeah. Okay, so a little bit like on the cow calls, you've seen how I place my hand on my mouth. And it's kind of that, it helps me to kind of like direct sound, and so where you can get that multiple cow, calf type sounds. Just a cow call straightforward, and then I'm going to follow it with a quick, soft calf call out the side of my mouth. So. This kind of helps for that multiple herd talk, as you know, cows and calves are mingling. Definitely, but as you play around with it, your lips change the sound. You know, a lot of people go ew, ew, and try to close their mouth off to stop that sound. I would encourage you not to. It's more of like opening your mouth up as you make that note. I personally prefer this call over all of them, and I carry multiple. One question we got on Instagram: what is the average life of a diaphragm? It depends on the intensity of a calling scenario. I've blown through a diaphragm in a day. When you're bugling 300 times, 400 times, it's really intense. I've spit them out, I've kicked them on the ground, I got dirt on it. I always carry extras. Like literally, they're the unfortunate side of it. $9 is a pretty cheap scenario. If you don't have this, it's going to be hard pressed. So I always carry backups. I usually have 5 or 6 of these new in the package going with me, and I've done that for years. The bugle. I think that the bugle is probably one of the easier sounds of the diaphragm that you can make versus a cow call. I'm just going to kind of go through the thought process of bugles. I'm not one on when to use what and how, you know, elk communicate, verbalize. I think the biggest thing is how you call with intensity and emotion, and you put more of that intensity into it, that elk feels that intensity back, versus saying a certain note or does this, reacts to it. We've seen some elk behavior react to certain notes, and that may or may not be language. I'm sure that there's some communication value there. But a bugle, the simplest thing to learn and master, I think, is a locator bugle. And you're literally searching for just that high, long-lasting note. It's the note when your ears resonate. I'm not so worried about a low to high or a growl at the end. It's about hitting that high note, letting that note carry, you know, Oregon coast. It's thick. Sound does not travel that far. Chances are 200, 300 yards away, I would not hear bull bugle in this. Same goes, he may not hear me. It's all about being loud and holding that note on a locator bugle. So here's what that locator sound is. And I held that note for a few seconds, cut it off. And when I cut it off, that's when I'm ears forward, listening for a response. The other one that I'll do with a locator, in the locator function, is going to be that same high note with added lip ball in it. Gets a little bit more realistic of what a bull sounds like. Lip ball. It's not that hard. I still remember the first time that I ever learned how to lip ball. I was 15 years old, working at a archery store there in Roseburg. On a Sunday, my buddy John Rains and I were standing there and trying to do it. And I remember finally making the noise and trying to figure it out. I couldn't replicate it. Once I did, It's kind of that whole trumpet spitting into the... You're putting your lips together, your lips are vibrating back and forth, and that's where you get that sound of the lip ball. Bringing those lips together, letting them vibrate, that gets that lip sound. Closing those lips together, vibrating, lip ball. It's not rocket science, but it's one you got to practice, and you'll get more comfortable. You can kind of slowly feather your lips in, bring them together, brrr, lip ball, come off with a clear note. A lip ball and a chuckle. That's more in that intensity scenario when I talk about calling elk. Imitate a bull. So if a bull lip balls at us, I'm going to lip ball back at him. If he bugles and chuckles at the end, I'm going to bugle and chuckle at the end. If he's just chuckling, I'm going to chuckle him. And I don't know what it is with that copycat scenario. A lot of times I think their anger level, it's like getting mocked by somebody. You think about the schoolyard and someone's making fun of them, and, you know, back and forth, you can all of a sudden, you're trying to invoke a fight, right? Here is that lip ball, and then we're going to throw a chuckle on the end of that. That's lip ball chuckle. The other sound, you know, we've got a bugle, we've got the locator bugle, we have lip ball, bugle. The next sound to learn is the chuckle. Chuckle's probably one of the more difficult sounds, but I think the realism factor is probably the most critical. Chuckle is, it comes from your diaphragm. If you watch a bull elk bugle, it's that diaphragm moving. So this is all coming from your diaphragm, and it's all about that airflow in and out, in and out. I'm not just letting air out going and falling off. It's that back and forth. It's all coming with the influx of your diaphragm. So you have a little bit of reed noise in there and a lot of voice. So I'm going to do it without a reed. It's going to be, and I'm letting my lips kind of come together, letting that sound, that airflow, as I'm bringing back, making noise coming off, kind of. I haven't quite mastered it like Dirk. He's going to talk a little bit about that phlegm sound. It's pretty amazing. Here is what a chuckle sounds like. The other sound I want to talk about is a bark. And it's not a sound that you want to hear an elk do, but I think the thing, I learned it as a tool, happened a few years ago over Eastern Oregon, hunting Rockies. A bull saw us as we were moving in. He barked at us, took off. We ripped down at him, and I barked and chuckled at him, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, that maybe wasn't what I thought it was. That is an elk over there. And we never did kill the bull, but we repeatedly called him in after he had seen us. And it's a bark followed either by a bark and scream, you know, full bugle, or a bark and chuckle. But the bark sound is just that, yo, it's that really hollow sound. And this is where a lot of times you'll hear a bull do that, as they come in and they know that they have a sound over there. They feel like they should see something. They're going to bark at you like, whoa, where are you? Like, I know you should be right there. So you're going to communicate back. It's kind of an accelerated chuckle, that intensity. Bark, scream. You can see that intensity goes up. And we talk about that a lot. It's that volume inflection. You're putting emotion into the call, demanding something. So there we go. That's a bark scream. Okay, the biggest thing, and I've talked about this multiple times, is the intensity, emotion, calling with emotion, calling with confidence. You know, we definitely, as the season goes on, get more confident. We call in a couple bulls. You feel better behind the bugle tube. All that helps you become a better caller. But as you're working a bull, you know, some bulls, they're timid, quiet coming in. Other bulls, they're in a full defense of their cows. They come in, they're mad. You want to be mad back at them. It's all about air pressure, volume, and you're just like yelling back at them forcefully. Like I said, one intensity level. Here's a low intensity bugle. This is a bedded bull type response. You're going to hear in the afternoon. You might get a bugle out of them. Just a simple, it's just a bugle, no voice, just a simple, phew. You hear that, And it's a good thing. Okay, we know he's bedded, we're going to move in on him closer. As things get closer, you bugle, he gets a little bit louder, it's a little bit longer. Next thing you know, it's going to be a bugle, a chuckle, chuckles, you know, that intensity level. That's when things are happening, you're closing the distance. Kind of, you can see that as you amp up, the intensity goes into it. Not the secret, but what we do a lot of times is the bulls coming in and they're getting madder and louder, we're going to get madder and louder. All right, so we reached out to all the people on Instagram and just said, hey, what are some of the questions? We've tried to touch through that. One that I know is, how do you do a low to high bugle? And it's simple in the sense of tone is all pressure and volume. So the more pressure that you put on the reed with your tongue, the higher pitch. Same with air pressure. The more pressure you put on, it's going to be a higher pitch. You want to get that low note to, you know, work through the tonal range and then fall off on that. You're going to start with lower pressure, less air, increase pressure, increase air pressure and tongue pressure on the call. Finish off with that little bit of voice. You stop the bugle. So thanks for sitting through this. Hopefully it didn't bore you. Hopefully we gained a little bit of knowledge for you just from our experience, our failures. By no means are we world champions or anything of the sort. We're just elk hunters that love it, and we're hoping to share some of the failures and lessons that we've learned in the woods to you to become more successful out there. The biggest thing, the fear of failure. People freeze at the thought of failing. Don't let that be the case. If you don't go in the woods, that is failure. Go out, experience it, go for an adventure, have fun, practice with your calls. Hopefully we'll see you in the woods. Honestly, the greatest pleasure is running across great people in the backcountry, in the woods, on trails. Hope to see you out there this fall. Check out Land of the Free 2.0. We're going to start, it's going to be 5 states, 45 days. Going to air that November 15th. Day-by-day story of what's going on. And do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends. Appreciate your time. For you watching this means the world to us. You're our lifeblood. See you next time.